Right, morning everyone, welcome. Ed is driving this morning, so handing over the gear stick in the brakes. Well, no brakes on this meeting, but yeah, I'm sure Ed will take us down an interesting road. So Ed, over to you.
I preferred if you said I was running it because I don't drive anymore because I've gone car free for environmental reasons and I run everywhere now. Last week we had some fun at the end of the week looking at first cartoons that people liked, and then we had a look at some music, and it was a bit of fun, but it also had quite a serious business side to it. For example, Lee mentioned the opera scene in The Shawshank Redemption, and then mentioned that music speaks louder than words. And I actually used that to inspire a guest post I had to write for someone's business blog, all about tone of voice, perhaps being louder than the words. So a bit of fun, but also some serious stuff. And Lee suggested today that we looked at our favorite film, instructing us just to share a picture, because otherwise Ivan would have terrible copyright problems. I've forgotten to get my picture prepared. I'd saved it, but I haven't got it on my screen, so I can't share screen at the moment. But my film is actually The Bug's Life, which is a Disney film. And it's made by Pixar Film Studios, fantastic animators who made films like, I can't remember now, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Toy Story, fantastic films. But I've chosen Bug's Life for two reasons. One, it's specific to one event, but also it's more general. And in Bug's Life, it's all about the ants' battle with the nasty grasshoppers who try and steal all their food. They make the ants work for them. And this hero, Flick, one of the ants, he's the hero, Flick. He's an independent thinker. And after several disasters, is the best way to put it, he becomes the hero of the film. And he defeats the grasshoppers. And when she was about 9 or 10, Charlotte said to me, she said, "Dad, you remind me of Flick." And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And before we could finish the conversation, the doorbell rang, the dog started barking, and there was chaos. And I never found out why she thought I was like Flick. And then so I just sort of basked in the glory, or my daughter thinks I'm a hero. And then about 3 months later, I asked her, "Charlotte, why do you think I'm like Flick?" And she said to me, "Well, Dad, it's because, you know, in the scene where they're in the back of that cart and he's trying to explain something to that child ant and the ant doesn't understand. Well, that's exactly, and then because the child doesn't understand, Flick's voice gets louder and louder and louder, and in the end he's shouting at the child. He says, "Well, that's exactly how you explain things to me, Dad." And that was my bubble burst. And ever since then, whenever I use a nickname on a website or in my email address, I'm called Edward Flick, just to remind me of my daughter's words. But the more general thing is about children's films. Reminds me of one day, late at night, I watched a film about rich people, about millionaires. And one couple had 2 children and 6 nannies. And they only ever saw their children when they were sort of wheeled out to play a party piece on the piano in front of guests. And then the nannies would take them away and bath them and put them to bed. Anyhow, the following morning at 4 o'clock, Charlotte, my youngest, she woke up So I took her down, and she wasn't very happy. I think she was either not feeling very well or had a bad dream. So I took her downstairs, and we just sat there and watched her favourite DVDs. You know how children like to watch things over and over again. And I had my arm around her and was snuggled up. And about 6 o'clock, Holly came downstairs, my oldest, and she sat the other side of me. I had my arm around Holly, my arm around Charlotte, watching these children's films. And I suddenly realised I had a lot more than those people in that documentary I'd watched the night before. I was wealthy. And whenever I see a children's film, it always reminds me of the wealth I have with my family. And later on in life, I heard a saying, some people are so poor, all they have is money. And that's why Bug's life to me is a very important thing. So that's me, over to everyone else.
Great, thanks, Ed. Right, so Vinay, let's come across to you next.
Hi, everyone. I didn't think that we were serious about the movie thing, so my apologies. I haven't actually prepared anything, but I do have a favorite movie that's I have loved from the moment I've seen it, and I've probably seen it about 10 times. And that is the movie called The Green Mile. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's got Tom Hanks in it, and it's set in the 1960s in the American Deep South, when racism is still very, very strong. And it's about a big black guy that's accused of murdering 2 young girls. And the movie goes on to explain, and you see how this guy didn't actually murder them, he actually tried to save them. And I don't know if you can see my screen. It's a small little picture. Like I said, I didn't prepare, but this is the guy that was accused of murder, and it turns out that he's actually trying to heal them. And the movie goes through where he's seen as a big brute, but he's very gentle and really is a good man. And I think the point, the reason why it speaks to me is that we must never judge somebody on their looks or on our first impressions of them. That we need to get to understand people and be tolerant and understand differences and try and establish what is good in people, as opposed to just writing them off from first impressions. So that is my share. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinay. Yeah, I've seen that movie as well some time ago. It's a bit of a tear-jerker, isn't it? In some ways, I think. Yeah, so, okay. Cecile, let's get across to you next.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Photos. I'll say select photos. There we go. Done. Can you see it?
We're not seeing anything yet.
Okay, I'll say done.
There we go.
So, yeah. Okay. So my best movie ever is Unbearable Lightness of Being. It is an old movie. It was made in 1988. And it is about a surgeon that's from Prague, Tomasz. That's from Prague, and then he goes to a medical conference and he meets a photographer, and they have a flaming affair. Then he takes her back to Prague and so they go to Switzerland. Sorry, and then they start this affair. But it's Daniel Day-Lewis that plays the lead role in this, and Juliette Binoche. And then another lady, I've forgotten, Lena Olin. And then, so then he's a terrible womanizer, but he's a fantastic person, but terrible womanizer. And then they have a great life, but then she doesn't really like this fact that he womanizes because he finds another girlfriend as well, and many others. And then she goes back to check. And then he realizes what is missing when he leaves him, and then he goes back after her and in trying to get her back. So the lesson, it's just got beautiful, beautiful love scenes. It's got scenes from the war. It's got nature scenes. Yeah, it's a beautiful movie, and it also just always reminds me that even if people seem, oh man, someone's phoning me, even if people are bad or not what you want them to be on the surface, they are good at heart, and so the movie ends well, where they both live together, kind of in the Czech. But yeah, that is my all-time best movie. Sorry, it's the electrician phoning me. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Cecile. So it's the unbearable heaviness of being continually connected. As I think one seems to be your challenge. So I think because Cecile's going, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, sorry. It's the electrician phoning me. He's got to come and do the electrical compliance. Sorry.
No problem. Right, thanks for that, Cecile. Right, Jasper, let's come across to you.
Morning. Yeah, I have a challenge with the topic because I do watch movies, but I was thinking of what really stands out, and I mean, it's always set such a high standard with the dissertation of the life of a bug or whatever. You know, it's difficult to then meet that kind of standard. So I'm going to be very superficial. I'll just share two of my favorite movies and two of Helen's favorite movies. So let me start with the easy one. So Helen's favorite movies, the two that if I have to be on a panel and they ask me what do I think are her favorite movies, she's a sucker for these kind of love stories similar to what Cecile just described there. And we all know it's a happy ending kind of movie. But Pretty Woman, Helen saw the Pretty Woman quite a few times. And I think it's almost the promise of, doesn't matter how bad your life is, somewhere along your line, somewhere in your life, you might just meet your Prince Charming, who is rich, and he can then put you on a new path. And I think she also loved the shopping spree scene in that movie. You just have a credit card and you can walk in and doors open up for you. So that was her one. And then when we were just newly married, The Champ came out. And she saw that movie a few times, and I saw it once or twice with her. And she was so emotionally touched by that little boy's sadness when his father died from a boxing match, that I remember one day I came home from work or wherever I was, and I met her at the door, and I said, "So how was your day?" And she said, and she was still sobbing because she just finished watching The Champ, and that was the second time she watched it. Anyway, so I don't know why sometimes we just need to have these kind of movies that give us an outlet for our emotions, because I think that's what it basically is. And then for me, the two movies also similar to Ed are actually animation movies. And I think Lion King, I saw that twice. And I obviously appreciate the artistry in the people who paint these pictures. I think, what is it, painting something like 30 or 40 pictures, frames per second. And so the artistry behind it is just amazing. The songs, the visual, but then the story. So I think it's a story of hope, a story of the cycle of life, and then also balance. and that there's a place for everybody in this movie, even the antelope that's the next meal of the lion, but without the antelope, the lion himself dies and becomes the meal of the hyena. So the ecosystem that is just a reminder that we need each other and we all have value to add in one way or another. And then a movie that I only saw once, but it was quite from a visual perspective, and I saw it in 3D, Avatar. And I will certainly go and watch them. I believe there's a next Avatar soon to be released. I will certainly go and watch that again. So so this guy is basically paralyzed, but he then steps into this artificial character, or somehow, I don't know. I actually lost, but it's like a real life planet, and then they're on this real life planet, and they then enter these other species and engage with them. But I think it was more, it's more appreciation for. I have huge appreciation for people who write good stories, books, and to just conjure it up out of thin air, and make it seem so realistic that when you read it or you see the visual display of that in a movie or in a series, that it actually grabs you emotionally and push you along. So there's a lot of that good stuff happening nowadays, even with some of South African series, that you can really see the quality has improved tremendously. Yeah, so I think my contribution to today is not so much a specific lesson I got out of it. It's more of an appreciation for the ability of people to put things in picture and song and in visual.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Right, Trevor, let's get over to you.
Good. Right. Seeing as Jasper brings up animations, I've actually got 2 posters I want to show. In fact, I've got a lot more, but this one always gets me. I think it's a fantastic story, and it was a story that really spoke to my girls, all of them. And I think the real essence of the story for me is it exacts revenge on dentists because they don't come out too well in this particular movie. So anyone who doesn't like going to dentists, you've got to watch this particular movie. But it almost turns around and says this little Nemo who wouldn't actually listen to his father and the adventure that he goes on, and that poster always gets me, because behind all the good little folk in life seems to always be this menacing something that almost has deep enjoyment in taking you out. So it tends to magnify the cynicism in me about how other creatures and individuals enjoy their lives by taking good folk out, and the good folk have got to fight back. So I love this particular story. If I can try and get to another one, if I stop share here, let's see what happens. Nope, can't find them. Let's see, optimize. Nope. Sorry, it just won't come up for me. No, not at all. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Just can't find where they are.
Oh, okay, so you're pulling the plug just because you can't find your pictures. I thought you would tell us what they were.
Yeah, I can't talk without my pictures. But Ivan, I was holding back one of the pictures. I just want to hear what you've got, and then I'll tell you about the one. Maybe I can get it up, but I'll hear yours because this was stimulated by you, the one that I've got. So let's hear what you've got.
All right, yeah, it was an interesting topic for me because at the end of the day, I enjoy watching movies. I don't think I've ever watched a movie twice. I'm not sure that I ever will watch a movie twice. It just doesn't resonate for me. And I must admit, in the last number of years, I've watched very, very few fictional movies per se. I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've watched a lot of real life stories. I love the nature stuff that people like David Attenborough and many others put out. I really enjoyed. There's a whole series of documentaries on wild. It's called Wild China or Wild Europe or Wild Italy or Wild South America or whatever. Those are all fascinating to me to go and look at what's really happening out there in these different parts of the world and in places which are still wild, and they do have great, different kinds of nature and things that we just simply don't see here, whether it's the animals or the birds or the lizards or whatever it happens to be. Those are the things that really amaze me and fascinate me. And then there's a series of shows by a British chap by the name of Ben Foigle, I think his name is, or something along those sort of lines, and that's called what is that? Return to the Wild or Living in the Wild? I can't remember the name of the series, but what he did is he went and tracked down people who'd basically abandoned mainstream society and gone off and lived in these remote and difficult places and just started new lives in the wild. That's what it's called, New Lives in the Wild. And I mean, those for me are absolutely inspiring. I mean, really, these people who've been city dwellers and people working in businesses and corporates, and suddenly they've decided, okay, let's pack it up and go and find a remote and sometimes very inhospitable place and start a completely new life and develop. So those are really the kinds of things that I find interesting, and I'll probably watch some of those again. But having said all that, I do, and I have said on this forum once or twice, I've recently been binging a little bit on some old Star Trek series, so a complete switch of direction and focus. And the reason I've been watching those, and I did watch those when they first came out, 25 years ago, perhaps, and I've been watching them again recently. Is I find the vision of the people that put those series together in some respects absolutely fascinating. Some of the things that they saw and perceived and brought into those series back then have become real. They were science fiction 20, 30, 40 years ago. Some of it is absolutely real now. So you've got to wonder how much of it that still isn't real may still become real, going forward into the future. But those sorts of things I like watching simply to help me switch off. Just park in front of it and switch off. So it gives me relaxation. Wife doesn't understand it at all. Why I would want to sit in front of the TV to disengage and to switch off, but that's what I do. But I think the most recent thing that I watched that I found really inspirational was this little story, a documentary again. Some of you might recognize the image. Came from it's a South African chap down in Cape Town, and it's called My Octopus Teacher on Netflix. An amazing story how this chap engaged over a full year with this one octopus off the coast of Cape Town, and what he discovered, what he found out about this amazing creature. I mean, creature that lives basically for 1 year only. And the process of how this animal actually engaged with him and behaved and survived that year that he followed her and connected with her. I mean, this picture here in the middle with her on his chest, I think was the last the last time he actually had contact with her before she went off into her cave to lay her eggs, and when she does that, she guards them right up until the day that they hatch, and then she passes away. She dies of starvation and gives up her life for her young. But as I say, just before she did that, she actually swam up to him and actually spent some time sitting on his chest, where he actually, was able to connect with her. And completely amazing level of intelligence, parent intelligence. I mean, people say animals don't have intelligence, but if you watch this particular documentary, I think you just have to believe that there is an amazing amount of intelligence in this creature specifically. And for something that lives for such a short period of time, has no parental guidance or input growing up, the way it actually adapts and develops through those 365 days that he spends with her is for me, is just absolutely mind-blowing. So yeah, those are my little stories and things that I really find enjoyable to watch. So yeah, Trevor, back to you.
Right. Well, I think you introduced me to one of the really best inspirational documentary I've ever seen. And it's called Celebrate What's Right with the World. So if you haven't had a look at it, please go and get a copy of it. I don't know if I can get down here. Oh, my goodness, grabbing it. It's on this side. This guy, Stuart Jones, he produced this publication, Celebrate What's Right with the World. And the one thing, Ivan, I really associate with Stuart Jones is a picture of a dandelion. And it's nowhere on any of his covers or his posters. But do yourselves a favor, if you haven't been in to have a look at this guy. He's a photographer like Ivan is, and that's why Ivan introduced this to us. But whenever we show it to groups of people in our wisdoms presentations of inspiration, this is just an indication of the different perspectives that people actually have for the world, and it's well worth looking at. So that was on my list. Ivan, as you were talking as well, you stimulated in my mind another poster that I had when you said Star Trek. I had E.T. Because I think that was one of the most emotional movies we ever saw, of finding this little alien. And ever since I watched that movie, E.T., I've always looked with my head up in the sky. I'm looking for little E.T. so that he can use my phone. And now that I'm really gone digital, I'm looking up for these guys, but I haven't found them yet. But the movie was phenomenal. Okay, celebrate what's right with the world. You've got to have a mention of that, Ivan.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Trevor. And thanks for bringing that back. I do absolutely love that. I mean, it's something that just gets me emotional every single time I watch it. Doesn't matter how many times I watch that presentation, and do it. Being a National Geographic photographer by profession over the years has become rather oddly a highly sought after motivational speaker and leadership development guy, simply as a result of that very first one that he did way back when, probably 35 years ago. And he's got a phenomenal way of presenting what he sees in the world, and some of the stories and some of the images that he's captured are just stunning. Ordinary things, ordinary people, ordinary places that Trevor mentioned the dandelion photograph. I mean, that little story about when he took that particular picture, he'd gone out to a place to take pictures of these flowers, and he just couldn't find inspiration. And when he came back after a couple of days, all the flowers had turned into dandelions, into puffballs, and he thought, well, I've lost the moment. And then he sort of looked at it again from a completely different perspective and wound up taking this image with a macro lens from underneath the dandelion, looking back up at the sun, and the sun shining through the dandelion little fronds that's on the dandelion puffball, and a stunning picture. But I think what even more stunning is just that ability to turn things around completely and look at them from a completely new and different perspective, and that's what he does exceptionally well. So yeah, that is an absolutely beautiful thing that yeah, as Trevor says, we've used it a number of times in our wisdom sessions, and it's definitely worth a look. You can find various bits and pieces of it on YouTube. He's got his own website these days as well, and some amazing stories and imagery. So yeah, thanks for that. All right. Okay, so that's we seem to have lost Jasper. I'm not sure what happened to him. We chased him away with dandelion stories, but all good. So tomorrow, Vinay, you said you're taking the reins. Oh, sorry, Ed. Apologies.
I've got to do my lead wrap up bit and then set the challenge for tomorrow.
Ah, okay. Well done.
And I thought that was fascinating because I didn't think it would bring out so much. And I think what's interesting was how little banter there's been in the chat. And I don't think I've ever known you speak so long, Ivan. It's a pity Jasper's gone, because he reminded me of some advice that Bruce Fordyce gave me once, and he's probably given it to thousands of people. He said, whenever you're in a race and you're going to pass someone, just as you come on their shoulder, just tap them on the shoulder and say, wow, you're looking good. And then just go past them. And that will destroy them. And that's what Jasper always does to me. He says, I can't follow Ed because he's done it all. And then he speaks for a long time, like he did today, with some beautiful comments. So it reminded me of that. For tomorrow, like you, Ivan, I don't watch many films. I much prefer books. And my daughter, who's very much into film, doesn't read books. So what we did one time was I had to watch the film and she had to read the book where the film was based on the book. So I thought for tomorrow, we could look at our favorite book, but I was going to put a constraint on there because sometimes constraints engender creativity. So we can talk about books, but no religious texts. Otherwise, we'd all choose the Bible probably, or the Quran or something. So our favorite book and what it means to us. I hope that's all right.
I've got no problem with that. You've tossed Vinay an interesting curveball there. So Vinay, I hope you're up with that one. And yeah.
No, that's fine. I'll accept Ed's tap on the shoulder. Cool. Then I will shelve mine for another day, and yeah, we'll look at books.
Well, what Ed has done here, Vinay, I think, is he's set the opportunity for you to do exactly the same thing to the next person. So you can decide whose shoulders you're going to tap on and what curveball you're going to throw them in the process as well. So
okay.
Great. All right, folks, thanks so much. Have a great day further, and we'll be reading our way through things tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Cheers now.